Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about the most feared, the most confusing, and honestly the most fun part of Model UN crisis committees. If General Assembly is chess, crisis committees are like a chessboard on fire. But don't worry, by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to research, plan, and survive one like a pro. We're going to break it down step by step, like what an actually crisis committee is, how to research for it, how to write directives, how to build your arc, and how to keep it cool when the crisis director starts dropping bombs, and sometimes literally. Okay, let's start from the beginning. What is a crisis committee? A crisis committee is basically a specialized Model UN committee where the situation changes constantly. So you're not just debating resolutions, you're reacting to real time events. There's a crisis director, which is basically like the person who controls the narrative, who controls what's going to happen next, who keeps sending the crisis updates. Your job is to respond to them through directives, either individually or with other delegates, and you have to showcase how your character would handle that problem. Unlike a general assembly where you represent an entire committee, in a crisis committee you represent a portfolio, which is an individual role. You could be a minister, a CEO, a military general, a fictional character, somebody from the Illuminati. Like the last crisis committee I went to was an Al Qaeda crisis committee, so I was the deputy leader of AQAP. So you have a lot of roles and a lot of different types of committees and types that you can have inside a crisis committee. So, and every decision you make affects the storyline. Think of it like a part of like half diplomacy, half strategy game, and improv theater. And that is why most first timers panic, because there is no fixed script and everything changes in a few minutes. But once you learn the structure, crisis committee actually become one of the most logical formats out there. Okay, so the structure. Inside the room, there are usually three kinds of people. First is the chair who keeps the order. Second is the crisis director or CD who runs the storyline. And third is the delegates, which is you, each representing a portfolio. The committee begins with the background briefs. You receive a short document explaining the initial situation. From there, debate starts like normal MUN. You give opening statements, but then you find out the first crisis update. Maybe a coup happened, maybe there was an assassination, maybe there was a cyber attack. Every update leads to you and your character having to do some action. You write a directive explaining how you respond with your powers. Then the CD reads, judges, and reacts, and your directive can change the story. And sometimes there is a cap on directives, so you have to include solutions and stuff in your speeches too. And honestly, when you have written directives and you write stuff that your character might do, it is not necessary that the CD would always pass them. It is literally their discretion if they want that particular directive to move forward or not. So instead of long speeches and resolutions, crisis MUNs are built around quick, powerful decisions. Because it is fast moving, your research must be sharper and your thinking should be quicker. Now, research everything. Best crisis delegates don't memorize facts, they understand their character's world. And start with your portfolio guide. So, you need to ask, who am I? What authority do I have? Who can I influence? What are my resources? If your committee is historical, for example, Cuban Missile Crisis 1962, Google your exact character and their real life role. If it's fictional, study the logic of that universe. What's technologically possible? What's politically realistic? And you can use AI tools to speed this up. Like you could type into Perplexity, summarize the political powers and influence of your character in year and event, and it will give you a short sourced overview. And you could ask, maybe let's say ChatGPT, what responsibilities would this portfolio have in a government? And that helps you define your jurisdiction. Now, when you have a crisis committee and it is fictional, it is not necessary that you would find answers on Google. And sometimes you might not even find them from ChatGPT because like I said in that Al Qaeda one, ChatGPT couldn't even help me because obviously it is a terrorist committee and ChatGPT has some certain safety regulations. So you have to dig deep into the crisis committee to actually find out what is happening. Now you can create a one-page power map, which would include your formal powers. For example, can you deploy troops, pass budgets, can you arrest people? Then your informal influence, like who can you persuade? And your personal goals. What do you want out of this committee? And it can't just be winning best delegate. Everyone wants that. Remember, never overstep your jurisdiction. If you're the Minister of Education, you cannot declare a war, but you can shape the narratives, you can fund programs, you can influence public morale. Knowing the boundary lets you bend them smartly and get the committee in your favor. Every crisis committee sits inside a specific time and a place. You need to know what is happening around your story. For example, if your committee begins in 1990 Pakistan, research the real political climate in that year. Who was in power? What conflicts existed? What technology did the country have? And honestly, Perplexity is great for this. Ask it to give me a 5 point summary of region in year, and you'll instantly know the key context. Why does this matter? Because your directives must sound believable. If you suggest launching satellites in 1970 Nepal, the chair will know that you did not research. But if you reference existing programs or real limitations, you sound authentic. Also, you need to take a note of the international environment. Crisis committees often, more often than not, connect to global events like sanctions or wars or alliances. And understanding what the outside world looks like helps you predict the future updates. Now, researching your allies and opponents. Now, you need to map the other portfolios in the room. Smaller committee, research everyone, great. Bigger one, focus on the 10 to 15 top key players and look for overlapping interests. For example, if you're the foreign minister, you likely align with defense or intelligence, but might clash with finance or opposition leaders. Write small notes beside each name, like ally, neutral, or threat. During the conference, update this map constantly because crisis committees are a political chaos chess. And if you know who wants power and who wants peace, you can plan 2 moves ahead. And it is not necessary that in a crisis committee, the Minister of Education will do what the Minister of Education might do in a real life scenario. They might break out of character, they might do something unexpected, and honestly, that is totally to be expected by you if you want to win. Okay, policy and legality. Even though crisis feels fictional, realism wins awards. Every action must sound legal and politically and policy consistent. Combine policy, which is fact, with legality, which is logic. Example, like under Article 245 of our Constitution, the Defense Ministry can deploy internal forces during national emergencies. That sentence shows how you understand both your authority and your jurisdiction. Then add a supporting fact, like in 2023, our government used the same clause during the flood relief operations. So that is policy plus legality plus example, which gives you credibility. So whenever you write directives, you need to ask these three questions before sending it to the CD. Does this make sense for my role? Is it legally plausible? And can I defend it if questioned? If the answer to all three is yes, send it. If not, adjust the wording. Alright, so now that you've understood what a crisis committee is, how directives work, and how the updates shape the story, let's talk about what actually separates average delegates from crisis legends. Because honestly, everyone can write directives, but not everyone can control the crisis. Before you even walk into the committee, your research should be twice as deep as your normal MUN research. Because remember, crisis is not just about topics, it's about maneuvers. The situation keeps evolving, so your job is to understand what's actually happening and also why it's happening. So here's what you do: divide your research into three key layers, which is historical context. Let's say it's a war crisis, read the last 10 years of tension. If it's a political committee, study who's in power, who wants to overthrow them, and why. Understand motivations, because crisis directors love to test knowledge and update. Number two, character or portfolio research. If you're given a person like Defense Minister of India, study what that person can realistically control, like I said, for example, troops, budgets, alliances, etc. And if you're given an organization or a fictional role, define your powers and limits before the crisis even starts. Like I said, jurisdiction. And number three, recent developments. Always keep up with the real world version of your crisis. Let's say it's Russia 2023 cabinet. Check what actually happened in 2023, because crisis directors often miss updates on recent or controversial movements. Now let's talk about your secret weapons, AI tools. Here are the three main ones I recommend: ChatGPT or any LLM. You can use it to summarize history, build character sheets, and generate possible crisis arcs. For example, ask, give me a list of 5 realistic challenges that the Defense Minister of India could face during an Indo China border escalation. You'll instantly get ideas that you can turn into directive material. But there's also limitations and restrictions in each and every AI. Like I said, like for example, the Al Qaeda thing, it did not help me at all in Al Qaeda. So just you have to keep in mind that not every topic is something that AI can research. Number two, perplexity. You can use this one for fact checking and live data. It cites sources, so when you're looking for recent statistics or quotes, this is gold. For example, you can write, find verified reports about the 2022 Taiwan crisis and China's military response. You will get data that you can actually use in your speeches or directives. And here's a side note that I just want to add. In the Al Qaeda committee, Perplexity AI was able to research for Al Qaeda and ChatGPT was not. So if you have one of those controversial committees, you might want to start with Perplexity AI. Number three, and my personal favorite, Model Diplomat. This one is built for MUNs. It helps you analyze your country's character or country's stance on real world issues. You can literally type, what would India's stance be if a terrorist organization attacked a UN peacekeeping base in 2025? It will combine your country's policies, allies, and defense priorities, and it will give you a framework. Now, here is the key: always verify AI information. AI gives patterns, not proof. So, double check stats using official sources like UN reports, news articles, or government websites. And do not trust everything that AI tells you. You need to double check everything. Every delegate in a crisis is basically playing a character, and how well you play it decides how memorable you are. So, here's a framework, which is the three C's of crisis personality. Number one, credibility. Know what your portfolio can and cannot do. I keep saying this because a lot of people mess this up. If you're the finance minister, you cannot deploy troops, but you can redirect defense funds. Stay in character, and that is what makes you believable. Number two, consistency. Pick a personality: calm, strategist, ruthless, opportunist, patriotic leader, and stick with it. Chairs notice consistent arcs. You cannot be like siding with bombing China one day and you turn to bombing India the next day. You cannot do that. You need to stay consistent. And number three, control. Always think 3 steps ahead. If you plan to start a war, plan the peace deal too. The best delegates control the board, not just react to it. How to react to a crisis update? So, a update just dropped, chaos in the room, people writing directives, papers flying. Here's how you don't panic. Step 1, pause and don't write immediately. Take 30 seconds to note down the main event of the update. Ask yourself, who does this hurt? Who does this benefit? How can I twist it to take to my advantage? Step 2, strategize with your allies. You can pass notes, you can form quick alliances because directives signed by multiple portfolios are stronger than solo ones. 3. Write with a purpose. A good directive should always respond directly to the update, include measurable actions, and assign responsibilities. A bad example would be we condemn the attacks and call for peace. A good example would be the Ministry of Defense will allocate 10,000 troops to secure the southern borders under the supervision of the Joint Task Force led by the Interior Ministry. That is specific and that is crisis gold. In crisis, notes are everything. Your communication channel, your gossip line, your secret weapon. You can use notes to form alliances like we can take down the PM together. You can use them to spread rumors or misinformation, and yes, you can do that strategically. You can negotiate deals like support my directive, I'll support your next update. And the one thing that most beginners do, but never spam the crisis direction. Never spam the crisis director. Every note should have a purpose. A well timed note can literally change the direction of the committee. Crisis committees are not about surviving, they're about thriving. You want to build a storyline, a character arc that makes sense. Maybe you start as a loyal minister and then turn rebel after a betrayal. You start weak, then rise to power by manipulating the events. The trick is to make it look natural. Base your decisions on logic and policy, not random power grabs. The chair can tell when you're chasing chaos for attention. Now, if you've seen my earlier research video, you probably remember I said something which is policy is fact and legality is logic. The best speeches combine them both. So let's break that down. If you're saying my country supports border control measures, that is policy. But if you explain that under the 1951 Refugee Convention, my country has the right to regulate asylum based on security risk, that is legality backing your policy. Now you're not just giving opinions, you're giving a defensible logic. That is how you make your stance unshakable in crisis. Every move you make has to feel justified. Here is something that beginners often miss. Crisis directors love creativity, but they hate impracticability. If your solution is wild, like launching nukes at every rebel base, you'll get punished by the next update. So always keep solutions innovative but within jurisdiction. For example, if you're the Minister of Technology, instead of saying I'll attack rebels, say I'll shut down their communication network and release propaganda through national media. That is smart and realistic, and that can actually happen. This might sound boring, but it's one of the best hacks for surviving a crisis committee. Use document tabs in Google Docs. Make a main folder titled Crisis Committee Research. Inside, make one doc for character research, one for past events, one for allies and enemies, and one labeled crisis ideas. In that last one, list 15 to 20 possible crises and your pre planned responses. That way, even when something wild happens, you already have a foundation. The biggest secret to winning a crisis is this: be unpredictable but purposeful. Don't do what everyone expects, but don't do it just for attention. Every twist, betrayal, alliance, and directive you plan should have a reason behind it. The crisis director will notice when you're playing the long game, and that is how you win. Not by being loud, but by being smart.